for an interesting panel discussion on a very, very important topic, which all the investors today are looking at. That is about international diversification. And within that space, what's the case for a market like Taiwan, which is having fair advancement when it comes to the technological aspects? To discuss more on this, we have with us today a very diverse group of financial experts who have been spending a lot of time in this particular field of advising their clients to choose wisely among the multiple investment options they have. First of all, let me introduce to you Ms. Shaili, who is a leading investment professional and founder of 12 Months. She's having more than 2 decades of experience in the field of financial advisory services. And it will be very interesting to understand her insights on various topics. Next in line, I have the privilege of introducing to you Mr. Chokalingam Payaniappan of Prakala Wealth. He's the director of Wealth and has more than 25 years of experience. He's traveled quite a bit worldwide and has got some wonderful insights across different markets and the case for investment and diversification within that. It's my pleasure to introduce our third panelist, Mr. Rahul Patel of ALS Wealth Management. He's one of the faster growing investment advisors out of Ahmedabad and has more than 18 years of experience in the field of helping clients manage their portfolio better. So welcome all of you. A pleasure to have you with us today to take our discussion forward. Case for international diversification with the Taiwan edge. So let me start with you, Shaili ma'am, first, and try and pick your brains about diversification itself, and from a more specifically from an international point of view. Because the first question which we normally get from our set of investors is that Indian prospects seems to be reasonably good. In fact, I'm sure most of the advisors, when they suggest or make portfolios for their client, would suggest India allocations as one of the core allocations for their clients. So given that kind of a scenario, why do you think international diversification would make sense from an investor's portfolio if the growth prospects in India are so good? So would like to understand more from you, ma'am, on this.
Thank you so much, Rajesh, sir, for this wonderful question. I strongly feel that diversification undoubtedly is a vital part of asset allocation. As we all are seeing, the Indian markets are going through the most glorious phase of all the times right now. Yet, investing internationally gives you a great opportunity as there is low correlation between the markets. So, thus, it gives you that opportunity acting as a source of stability during the market volatility. अगर एक इंडेक्स अंडर परफॉर्म करेगा तो दूसरा चलेगा एनी विच वे इन्वेस्टर को तो बेनिफिट ही मिलेगा उसका विन विन सिचुएशन ही होने वाला है सो देयरफॉर आई फील दैट इंटरनेशनल इन्वेस्टिंग इज द नीड ऑफ द आवर as it gives the stability to your diversified portfolio.
Sure. That's quite interesting. So first point you're trying to make is it can give a lot of stability because the market behavior can be quite different because the dynamics would be very different from country to country. And each of those economies could have different advantages and which can work at different point of time. So that's a fair point. Next, let me pick the brains of Choka sir here. Sir, if you can tell us from an investor's perspective, the challenge is how do we identify the geographies internationally? See, with India, we still could understand that most of the people have some kind of knowledge about the markets and the possibilities going forward. When it comes to international markets, we could see a lot of diverse kind of markets there. So how does one decide? Obviously, people will take support through their advisors to help them with which are the best kind of geographical countries from a diversification point of view. But generally, what are the key factors you would look into when looking at a specific geography?
Generally, I mean, whenever we see diversification, Indians are more looking towards developed nations, I would say. So far, whatever you have seen is predominantly US investments. So US market is a predominant market for not only Indians, for the rest of the world also. So many people put money there. It is considered to be a stable currency, standard world over. Dollar is being exchanged standard, and then more safer asset. And one of the predominant factors is whenever we are investing overseas, say like India is a developing country and in the forefront. So because of our growth, we also do have higher inflation. Developed markets have lower inflation comparatively. So the investor gets the benefit of that inflation through currency movements. So the same is risk as well as an opportunity. So there is market risk and currency risk. At the same time, market opportunity and currency opportunity. Then furthermore, if you see, some of the technologies, like it could be wherever we are talking right now, Zoom or Facebook or Google or Apple, or Tesla, to Tesla competition in India, it is coming, of course. But rest of the items, many of these technologies, including semiconductor, which Taiwan is in a front runner. So some of these items, the industries does not exist in India at all. So if someone wants to participate in those investments in those themes, then we have to definitely look at overseas developed markets. It could be Taiwan, it could be any other country, European countries or Japan, all those things. So it is a predominant advantage. One of the major reasons for today investors, particularly seeing that the developed markets in the last 10 years have given fantastic returns in general, even when are on par with India or little higher than India in dollar terms. So that is one. Of course, Shaili ma'am said about diversification. It's a very good thing. Then also, nowadays, Indians are considering more and more education for their children overseas. So that whenever that inflation works out, currency exchange rate and all those things, so it is good to have some portion of their money, investments, if they have plans to send their kids overseas for education in dollar or euro, whatever it is. So some 10 to 15% allocation will be a better choice over there. Of course, other travel, Indians are traveling a lot. So once in a year or once in 2 years, people are moving and they are spending $5,000, $10,000 in overseas trip. So for that also, diversification in terms of overseas investment helps a lot.
Sure. So that's one more interesting perspective. Sir, again, just a follow up on that, because you did mention about this, that people in India typically have been largely looking at the developed markets at this point of time. So if I want to put it this way, that typically we've seen a developed market like, say, US doing exceedingly well over the last decade. And after all the measures which we've seen in terms of policy support coming in because of the pandemic and the way to revive it, we're seeing a lot more support across the world, across different geographies. And the general belief is global growth could be in a reasonable space going forward. If that is the case, don't you think the emerging markets would hold more promise from a potential performance point of view going forward, where potentially they can outperform the developed markets? And within which, say, how do you look at a market like Taiwan for all the advantage it brings in, or all the specialized kind of technology which it's developed over the years? Would that stand them in good benefit going forward?
Yeah, definitely. Let me answer your first question first. The thing is, developed markets versus emerging markets. Definitely, India is a long-term bull story. There is no doubt about it, in my mind, at least for the next 25, 30 years. Definitely, or 40 years, India is going to give fantastic returns. There is no doubt about it. But what we have to see here is, of course, whatever you have said is also true. And Shaili ma'am said, whatever she said is also true. There is less correlation between, Indian market or a market like US. So that's why we also, tell people to invest overseas. So both are true. So now, since last 10 years, this has performed well. So now it could be the turn of emerging markets. No one knows. We have to wait and see. But it could be turn of emerging markets. But having said that, some of the very positive indicators, as I said earlier, are some of the technologies, some of the industries which are not available in India. They are driving the world right now. A company like Apple, a company like Microsoft, which is like $1 trillion, $2 trillion market capitalization, these are throwing away many countries behind them, behind the GDP. So if you take 2 or 3 companies, they are equivalent to India's GDP. Their market cap and India's GDP is equivalent. So now this run is going to be there for a while because it's a new economy until emerging markets, countries like India catch up, or China, India, we will all catch up. So as the market matures, but I feel still the developed market has some steam left over. Could be the rate of returns could be lower going forward, but mainly because of this technology area. Forget about the other industries. Technology pack will outperform well and keep these countries on the upper side. That is one. And Taiwan, generally, it is close to my heart in the sense, because I have been seeing some of these videos and the semiconductor industries and how China, the world is dependent on China, but China is dependent on Taiwan. So China is competing in a way to Taiwan, and they are trying to emulate the technologies, the semiconductor industry in China. They want to copycat whatever happening in Taiwan. So, and rest of the world. So as you know, chips are like our heart. So right. It has become the heart of the world. So now these guys are pioneers. Of course, in my earlier conversation with one of these Nippon fund managers, he was saying, no, it is not a new industry. Semiconductor is like half century old or 60 years old. But the thing is, the country is so advanced. It is, if I am right, Taiwan is almost half of India's GDP, or maybe little
much
more than
smaller,
that.
Much smaller than that.
Yeah. So in that way, the per capita income in Taiwan, it's almost all these things reflect. It's more. I would put it more towards a developed nation. Plus, they have one of those rare products which everyone wants today. So from that perspective, some of those companies are much larger than some of the top companies in India from a market capitalization perspective, even if you see. So all these things brings me to believe in Taiwan and taking the past 10 years returns or past 20-year return and projecting next 10-year or 20-year return. So the industry, all these dynamics, when we look at it, definitely Taiwan is a place to be there generally, and some portion of your investment could be considered in Taiwan because of mainly the semiconductor industry.
Sure. Thanks, sir. Quite insights, valuable insights to understand more about the opportunities there. Rahul bhai, if I can come to you next, in the same context, you can share us some key insights on the Taiwan opportunity, especially from a technology point of view, and the dominance which they have from a global perspective. In fact, somewhere I even read people call it the global hub when it comes to semiconductor manufacturing. So if we can shed some light on that particular aspect. I think you're on mute.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for the opportunity of this question and answer. So according to me, from the turn of this 21st century, we all have witnessed globally how technology has transformed our lives in each and every area. Its necessity and importance has only increased post the COVID pandemic that we all know. Individuals and business have relied heavily on the using technology, what Mr. Chokhalingam said yet away, that like Zoom and also. So post-COVID, as most of the workforce had to and are still working from home. If you look at the sectoral composition of the frontline index, I mean, TAIEX of the Taiwan stock market, information technology, IT accounts for more than 50% of the overall weight. We all are aware about the current supply disruption across the globe due to semiconductors shortage, where more than 169 industries have been impacted in some way or the other way. Where it is a global manufacturing leader with almost 50% market share, those chips which are used in modern electronics in areas such as healthcare, communication, defense, computing, transformation, clean energy, etc., which makes a strong export case of the country. I think and look a decade forward, lifestyle changes are way ahead of our imaginations. Medical facility and transportation as a new high. Almost every innovation will be because of a changing technology. As semiconductor is the heart of any innovation and had been maximized the size of the world by Taiwan, I think there has been a huge opportunity to buy part of Taiwan indices today.
Sure. Thanks, Rahul. Quite interesting points which you made. In fact, I was just reading some material there. What it tells us is Taiwan actually contributes more than 50% of the global chip production from the contract manufacturing part. So which is fairly dominant. And if you look at the market share difference between the nearest competitors, that again is significant. So that's what points which are saying is it makes a lot of sense. In fact, जो मार्केट शेयर जो उनका डोमिनेंस के कारण अभी बना रखा है उन्होंने, आगे चलते हुए भी इसको बरकरार रख सकते हैं ये लोग, क्योंकि जो नंबर 2 नंबर 3 पे जो प्लेयर्स हैं उनमें काफी बड़ा अंतर है जब मार्केट शेयर की बात करें. एंड राहुल भाई, just trying to do a follow up question with you.
Yes.
Where do you think would this opportunity or this dominance or why do you think this opportunity or dominance जो है ताइवान का, ये क्यों कंटिन्यू होना चाहिए?
So it's been very difficult to establish a new project because it takes a huge time to make it in completion mode. So whatever they have right away, it's making a monopolistic situation. So मुझे लगता है कि any other countries will start kind of a production, so it will take a huge time. And technology, you know that the changes of world has a timeless limit. So I think more or less the Taiwan has something which is an extra effort कि जो उसको सबसे अलग बनाता है, and I think it will be continued for time being.
Sure. In fact, Shaili ma'am, I'll again come back to you and pick your brains on this same question, because when we have some discussions around Taiwan, one of the concerns is today, probably as Choka sir also mentioned in his responses, that the semiconductor shortage worldwide has brought Taiwan to the limelight. तो कहीं ना कहीं एक डर है कि ये तो अभी जो डिसरप्शन है इसके कारण आपका काफी डिमांड बढ़ गया है सेमीकंडक्टर्स को लेके. आगे चलते हुए क्या ये डिमांड बरकरार रहेगी? एंड अगर नॉर्मलाइजेशन की हम बात कर रहे हैं, तो इफ लॉट ऑफ एरियाज you could see things getting normal, then would this demand go down and hence the importance of Taiwan also will kind of reduced. So what are your views on this?
Sir, just a few days ago, I was just going through one of the interviews of Pat Gelsinger, who's the chief executive of Intel. उन्होंने बोला कि there's still going to be 1 or 2 years till the time the life comes back to normal in terms of semiconductor. दूसरा बात, we literally want that the worst is yet to come. तो अगर हम अपना इंडिया में भी देखें ना, लुकिंग बैक होम इन इंडिया ऑल्सो, गवर्नमेंट इज गिविंग आउट इंसेंटिव स्कीम्स कि आप मैन्युफैक्चरिंग यूनिट सेटअप करो. सभी के साथ में टॉक्स चल रहा है सेटअप करने के लिए. दे आर गिविंग आउट रिबेट्स एंड everything, but as Rahul sir said and as Choka sir said, it's gonna take a very long time. कोई भी यूनिट चिप का सेटअप करना, it is not just setting up any manufacturing unit. उसको क्लीन वाटर चाहिए, उसको सब कुछ चाहिए. सो पूरा एक जियोग्राफिकल रहेगा एक्सेप्टेंस, तभी सेटअप को कर पाएंगे. एंड इट इज गोइंग टू टेक यू अ लॉन्ग टाइम. 5-6 साल से पहले वो भी नहीं दिख रहा है कहीं पे कि समथिंग, सम मैजिक और सम एक्सपर्टीज इज गोना कम ओवरनाइट एंड हम ये कर ले जाएंगे. However, that's why I see it's going to be a long road ahead, and I strongly feel that Taiwan shall continue to reign the market because of its TNC advantage. क्योंकि वो सबसे बड़ा लीडर है फाउंड्री में, and they have the tech giants of the world as its client. एंड चोका सर ने बहुत अच्छी बात कही कि चिप इज द हार्ट ऑफ एवरीथिंग. एंड ट्रस्ट मी सर, इन द कमिंग ईयर्स द वे वी लुक एट इट कि वर्ल्ड वाइड इंक्रीज आएगा डिमांड में सेमीकंडक्टर चिप्स का, बिकॉज इट इज गोइंग टू बी एट द कोर ऑफ ह्यूमन एग्जिस्टेंस. आप मॉर्निंग आंख खोलने से लेकर रात को आंख बंद करने तक देख लो, हर चीज में चिप चाहिए, हर चीज में आपको सेमीकंडक्टर चाहिए. आप एंड लास्ट 1.5 ईयर ने हमको बहुत अच्छा टेक्नोलॉजी दिखा दिया है. तो perhaps this is going to be there for a while. It's not gonna go away and demand बढ़ेगा. At least at par भी रहेगा और बढ़ेगा भी, because use बढ़ेगा. The more the usage, the higher the demand. So it's gonna stay for a long time. That's how I look at it.
Very, very interesting points. In fact, one of the common concerns or worries which people have is अगर demand की इतनी visibility है when it comes to chips, and all of us believe that technology is here to stay and obviously grow even bigger going forward. Why can't other countries actually replicate this and scale it up big time? So therein you have mentioned some very, very important points, man. That one, the entry barrier is reasonably large today. So from the availability of natural resources like water, the more important factor, I'm sure you also would have view on that, is skilled manpower. Same point.
Rajesh, one more thing, just here, whatever Shaili said is 100% correct. One thing is, say like, yes, other countries can compete, can emulate, can manufacture, they are doing. It is not that none is doing. America is manufacturing, China is manufacturing, everyone is manufacturing. Or South Korea could be, all these countries are manufacturing. The problem is many of these countries are manufacturing low-end semiconductor. Taiwan is leader in the high-end semiconductor, where we want the smallest size, where we want thinnest phone, thinnest laptops. So all these things, Taiwan is leading. And to make the size smaller and smaller, every company cannot do it. As Shaili mentioned it, the foundry. Foundry is a core of the semiconductor industry. So many of those entry barriers are the advantages Taiwan has an edge they have over other countries. Like last century, if you see, US led the financial world, kind of, in a way. So no other country was able to compete, but now every country they are doing with the finance. So the entry barriers at least could be there for the next 10 or 15 years or 20 years for whatever Taiwan is doing.
So another interesting aspect, I'm sure, is which we keep looking at, is that Taiwan's presence is across various parts of the entire semiconductor chain. So they are not only in the manufacturing or the fabrication, as you rightly mentioned, they are also across the packaging, the assembly part, the testing part. So they're everywhere across. In fact, even in design, they have been scaling up as a country. So in that sense, you're absolutely right. The entry barriers are tough, and possibly no other geography today has the capabilities across all the different aspects of the semiconductors, various parts of the semiconductor supply chain. Coming to you, Choka sir, there is one big concern is typically on China and what it's likely to happen in terms of their foreign policy vis-a-vis Taiwan. So China obviously for a long time has been maintaining that Taiwan is obviously part of their country. And in fact, some of the political leaders there have called for reunification in the years to come. So would that lead to any kind of aggressive stance by China, which in turn can put all this opportunity which we've been discussing about Taiwan in a spot? And hence, should that be a worry from an investor's perspective?
The fight between China and Taiwan, if I understand rightly, this is like centuries old. It has been going on for so many centuries. They are claiming the land, the people moving out, coming in. It is nothing but Chinese people who have settled in Taiwan if you go back to history. So now it is another country, Taiwan. Okay, they are up. So this one definitely could be a threat. But the problem is China cannot attack all of a sudden or take over the country all of a sudden, because it will go against China's interest. For China's manufacturing sector will shut down. If a war happens with Taiwan or whatever, if semiconductor units are shut down, it will go against China's manufacturing economy, everything. So China will not do anything aggressively, number one. Number two, other big brothers like big boys like US and other countries, they are dependent on Taiwan so much. They will never allow China to do any aggressive stance. The whole world will come together. Already we have seen, even for the COVID situation, the whole world versus China, kind of, that was the picture scenario. So now if anything happens to Taiwan, again the whole world will unite. So that is again a barrier there for China to act aggressively. My guess is they will keep on telling, giving threatening messages, sending out 1 or 2 fighter aircrafts about Taiwan and doing all those things. But ultimately, they cannot take over the country or they cannot destroy the economy, because it's such a huge economy. For such a small country, it is a huge economy. So generally, I mean, yes, there are threats. I mean, everywhere threats in India, US, whatever you take, there are some threats one way or other. But it should not go to that point that the market will go down and completely taken over. China cannot do that any aggressively. China is talking for Singapore as well. That is, Greater China. They are naming every country, nearby country. So it should not bother much. That's my thought process.
Sure. So very, very interesting points from all three of you in terms of how the opportunity is there, and obviously the scale which Taiwan has achieved over the years is something which cannot be duplicated that easily. And some of the concerns which obviously, as you rightly said, could be there, is something which should not stand in the way from an allocation perspective and the economy doing reasonably well over a period of time. So Rahul bhai, I'll come to you. So some, as I said, very interesting pointers to understand. First of all, the need for diversification, and within which the placement of an economy like Taiwan. So if you can just help the investors understand and possibly present a summary as to why one should look at investments in Taiwan itself. So कुछ तीन चार जो important points है जो investor को नजर में रखना चाहिए जब वो invest कर रहे हैं ताइवान को लेके, क्या रीजन है कि उनको निवेश करना चाहिए ताइवान के अंदर, और आगे चलते हुए जो फंड है, जो निपॉन इंडिया इक्विटी फंड है, उसमें आपको क्या लगता है कि ऐसे क्या खास बात है कि इन्वेस्टर को उसका चयन अपने पोर्टफोलियो में एलोकेशन के हिसाब से they should consider it from that perspective. So if you can shed some light on both these aspects.
Okay, so the first thing what I like is first is, as I highlighted earlier, that the dominance and the monopoly with this country holds in terms of semiconductor manufacturing, and it's a rising demand globally also. The second one which I like is in terms of valuation. The 12-month forward PE earning ratio for the Taiwan action is around 13, and which is lower than the historical average over the past decade, which comes very much lucrative options to part of China, a part of Taiwan. Third is its economy has a strong fundamentals such as a good forex reserve, approximately $550 billion, which is second highest figure in the nation's history, good export growth, manageable inflation, good dividend yield. So this would be a compromise Taiwan as in good sectors to invest. And fourth, this is very important, that there would be a weak correlation with the Indian stock market as far as the Indian investor is concerned, and which acts as a good diversification in clients' overall investment portfolio. So if I summarize all that in short summary, there has been a very good time right away to be part of Taiwan as an investment. Actually, it's an opportunity to add a unique sector in your portfolio. With the said approach, there has been only fund which is available called Nippon India Taiwan Equity Fund, which concentrated on the focus areas of Taiwan. Mainly the research support by Cathay, one of the largest AMCs of Taiwan and having more than 20 years of experience with approximately 200 billion assets under management. So I think this lucrative approach that for diversification approach, for the PE-based investors approach, for the monopolistic competition approach, I feel that this is a sector which one can look at it and invest on a diversification approach.
Sure. So that's a fairly interesting comment. So all three of you mentioned some wonderful pointers which investors obviously can take note of when they're considering any kind of allocations here. One is diversification that any international geography would bring, within which how Taiwan itself is placed in terms of the advanced kind of technology and the growth of technology need not be told to anyone. Everybody is seeing that in their daily lives, and therein also the fact that it is not something which can be replicated very easily. So the dominance which they've established can continue from a longer term perspective. So let me just throw an open house to all of you, maybe a minute or so between us. So any factor which you think, apart from all this, you want to share with the audience, they should keep in mind when allocating into international geographies, including Taiwan. And anything about Taiwan you want to add, more than happy. So I'll start with Shaili ma'am first.
When they are doing their asset allocation into the international market, please be very careful about the geographical part as well, plus what kind of backend support that the AMC would have. Like with us at Nippon, we have Cathay, which has years of expertise and experience behind it. So that really gives you the edge. So that strategic alliance is really important, I feel, when you are looking out at investing internationally.
Choka sir.
Yeah, generally, I think I would say like in the last 5 to 10 years, international investment has increased in India. So let it be Nippon Mutual Fund or any other fund house for that sake, all of them have introduced. Earlier, everyone was going behind US markets. Now it's kind of, everyone has a fund from US market. Now it is, some of these select geographies, because whenever I talk to some of the people, an investor from Taiwan, he completely agreed. He told Taiwan is a fantastic market. I am working here, I know about their potential and the way they work, etc. And some of these companies are we are getting at a good valuation. India is a growing market for which we are paying higher valuation. As Rahul Bhai told, generally the PE ratio and all those things are very reasonable levels. It could be dividend yield, or it could be all those things, all the valuation parameters are really good. The third thing is, say like if an individual investor from India, if he has to invest by himself overseas, it will be a nightmare. You have to do so much of reporting in your ITR that you will never want to invest overseas. So now we have a very easy cakewalk. Very, 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 very easy. You just throw 5,000 rupees, you are into Taiwan market. That's that.
Diversification in the AMCs also. All the markets are being proposed out to the investor, and investor has a party to their end. Which one you want to pick up and move out of Indian market.
Exactly. And for 5,000 rupees at the least cost.
Yes.
At the least cost. Sometimes I am seeing the expense ratios are even lower than Indian funds. Some of them. So at the least cost. So this is like a flavor to be added. Don't go overboard. Don't go like 80%, 90% of your portfolio, because I am living, I am spending, doing everything in India. So I should keep my 80% in India, and probably I should choose between 20, 15, 30, whatever it is, that percentage. Definitely in that respect, particularly the most attractive is ease of investment, and for the low entry barriers. It could be any fund, Taiwan fund or US fund, whatever you are offering, or any other fund house is offering. So all those things, a common person in India can invest in overseas market at the least expense ratio today, and he can enjoy the benefits of varied industries which are not available in India.
Rahul, any final comments from your side?
So 10 years or 15 years back, a mutual fund is a very new concept to every investors. Now mutual fund being a part of every investor's portfolios. It's been very easy to get a mutual fund. Well, everything is available on that, and people have studied that. So diversification globally has been a new concept, I think so. So people have invested, as Mr. Chukalingam said, that they invested an experience of a US market. Majority of investments last year or 2 years back or 3 years back, they started investment to US market. This is something new, relatively with a monopoly. So I think being a part of this kind of investments, and through Nippon, so Nippon is also a big brand of India, and through Nippon, if the founder company is Nippon and the supportive company is Cathay, then I think so it's been a great combination of these two, and Taiwan would make, I hope, as Mr. Chukam again said, that there would be a percentage allocation. So being Indian, majority investment in India, but still certain proportion investment you can think of a global and think of Taiwan. So I think that's it.
Yeah, ma'am.
मैं इसमें ये ऐड करूंगी सर कि इट्स लाइक अब इन्वेस्टर की जो प्लेट है ना वो कम्प्लीटली फुल हो सकती है, बहुत बड़ा बुफे लगा है उसके पास में, टू चूज एंड पिक उसको क्या चाहिए अपनी प्लेट में और क्या नहीं चाहिए.
Absolutely.
उसका प्लेट का साइज बहुत बड़ा होने वाला है अभी.
I'm sure there is always guidance available for them from the way they need to build their portfolios basis what their goals are. So thank you, all of you panelists. Very, very wonderful speaking to you again. All of you have been veterans in your particular field, and naturally that words of wisdom will hold us, all the investors, or help them to try and decide on their allocation front. So once again, a very, very big thank you to all of you for coming here and sharing your wonderful views. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.